Okay, so welcome back to our Meet the Manufacturer meeting. Good afternoon, dear audience. Hello, world. Hello, special hello to my friend Pat. Give me 5-star rating. Yeah, I was asked for. I was asked to tell you something about plastics, especially bioplastics, and how much bio is in biopolymers today. I mean, everyone of you recognize it, especially in Corona times. Plastics sometimes become more important, especially in the field of packaging. So that's why I want to say something about biopolymers. I have no agenda, so just a chaos theory, so straight in. At first, I want to tell you the difference, because at the moment there's a lot of misunderstanding and incorrect wording. A biopolymer is a natural, in a living organism, synthesized macromolecule. Yeah, and the biopolymer is characterized by its chemical structure, constitution, configuration, conformation. A bioplastic, there the properties of the material is important. Yeah, so there's a great difference, and but nevertheless, these words are sometimes used in different contexts. But you can also say technical biopolymer for bioplastic applications. Yeah. Okay, in the field of biopolymers, today there are a lot of labels on products, yeah, and which actually should tell us something about the material so that we know that it's bio. But I have the feeling, even if I work in that field, that sometimes even that labels are more confusing than helpful. Yeah, so that's why I want to tell you something more about polymers. That's why just a very short introduction of polymers are basically made. The conventional way of making polymers is the way of getting the crude oil, yeah. So and then the oil is distilled, and we get the naphtha, yeah, the petrol, and out of that, by continuous heating, we get the monomers. Yeah? So these are the units that we need for the macromolecules. And when we have once the monomers, we can do it like a puzzle. Yeah, you can now build up your macromolecules by the polymerization process, and so we get the polymer or also copolymers if we have more than one monomer. Yeah? And conventional classic examples is polyethylene, polypropylene, PVC, PET, polycarbonate, and so on. Yeah? A further way could be or is a way that it is modified. So that means it's blended with other polymers, it's blended with minerals, with color pigments, etc., etc. Yeah? So there's a lot of other ways. So we are here to learn something about biopolymers. Therefore, we need natural, renewable resources. And there are different ways to get polymers. As I mentioned at the beginning, most biopolymers are naturally made by living organisms. So that means most of these polymers already exist in our nature. So this is the very left way. Yeah, so we have the biomass produced by our environment, yeah, and we take some plant residues, for example, we wash it, we grind it, we take away the proteins and the minerals, and left over, for example, polysaccharides, yeah, sugars, starch, cellulose, chitin, and so on, which could be our resource for further processing. So that means we already got the biopolymers, we now make them processable. Therefore, a modification is very, very important. So that means most of these natural biopolymers are very stiff and cannot be processed without the further modification. Therefore, we need plasticizers, for example, it would be good if we can use natural plasticizers. The other way is that we also try to get natural monomers. Yeah? So this is a combination of a biosynthetic way and about processes that we force or bring into this process. And when we once get these monomers, today it's possible to create so-called drop-in biopolymers. They have exactly the same chemical structure like our hydrocarbons won by oil, yeah, and so it is possible to create biopolyethylene, bio-PET, bio-PE, bio-PA, etc. Yeah? And the other way is to create complete new biopolymers, also polymers. Yeah? And for example, polylactic acid, PLA, maybe most of you know that already, is one of these polymer, and also polyethylene furanate is another polymer. Just examples. Yeah? And there's a third way, yeah, which I prefer personally. That means here we have some helpers, our bacteria, microorganisms, who build up the polymers for us. Yeah, so this is a fully biosynthetic way, and as I told you, I personally like it because we do not have to put any energy inside. The bacteria do that by fermentation and things like that, so we don't have to do. We just have to control it, that they do it in a structural way. Yeah, and the polyhydroxide, the PHAs are one example that can be used like that. And also there we have to do some modifications. Okay. Yeah, the sad fact about biopolymers is that they still are just approximately 1% of the global annual production. Most of the polymers that are produced today are still petrochemical-based or oil-based polymers. And you see this mass, so it means more than double than the content of coffee that is produced every year, right? So what are the resources for polymers? It's just one side, if it's oil-based or if it comes from renewable resources. And another definition is what happens after the usage. So that means, is the polymer biodegradable or is it non-biodegradable? If nothing will happen, so that it also means that it is persistent. Yeah? It stays constant in its properties. So that's why we have this 4-field table. And this is also a reason today why there's misunderstanding. Yeah? Because these 3 fields, that means oil-based and biodegradable, in today's meaning is a biopolymer or bioplastic, yeah? Which is totally different than having a natural renewable resource and which is fully biodegradable. Yeah? So we put it in one and the same box, but they are completely different. And this is the way how people are confused today. And yeah, hopefully also with the help of this presentation, we know it a little bit better. Yeah? And for sure, there's also the way that we have natural resources, but they are not biodegradable, yeah? Which shouldn't be a disadvantage. Because we see here we see some examples. Yeah, so that means, as we talked about, polyethylene, polypropylene are the mass polymers in the field of oil-based and non-biodegradable. The so-called biopolymers made from oil, but which are fully biodegradable, is polybutylene succinate, polycaprolactone, PBAT, and so on. The ones are highlighted are the biopolymers who become more trend at the moment. So that means biopolymers made from starch, thermoplastic starch, and also with the help of our microorganism, the polyvinyl butyrate is one of these materials. And I will show you on the example with the bio-PET what is the real content of bio and what we can learn from that. So here once again our labels. Yeah, and you now can see that these labels, which tell us I am a biopolymer, we can more or less find in all these 4 fields. Yeah, and this is also this kind of misunderstanding. Yeah, so the people buy it with a good conscience because they think they have a biopolymer, but at the end of the day, maybe it was from oil, yeah, which was actually not the intention of the consumer who wants to buy it. One of these big problems today is that we always have requirements. Yeah? We have requirements for everything. But in the field of biopolymers, we have requirements before the usage. That means, where does the biopolymer come from natural resources. We have requirements on the processing. Can it be easy processed? Can I use the same machine that I use for conventional polymers? Yeah? So we have a lot of requirements there. Then we have for sure requirements during the usage. Yeah? So we want that when we buy a product, that it keeps its properties over the whole shelf life. Yeah? If it fails or if it breaks, we are disappointed and then it cannot work. And you can guess that there is a third fraction, the requirements after usage. Yeah? And for sure, everyone now expects that I will do it like this. Yeah? So that means we have at the end of the day an intersection where we hit all these 3 requirements. Everyone is happy, hey, cool. This is the way it works. the next slide, this is just my personal impression how it is today. That today, the requirements, especially after usage, are far away from the requirements before and during the usage. And that makes it that hard today to find this intersection, so that I guess maybe we are on a good way, but we need to focus it more, that these requirements can get more together and that we end of the day really find this intersection that we are looking for. But currently, we don't know what we want. Is it important that it is bio-based? And should it be fully biodegradable if it comes to the ocean, for example, that we have no pollution? Or do we want to use, again, our hydrocarbons in a recycling process to have a one-on-one product after its shelf life? Yeah, so these are the important questions. And it's pretty hard to answer it today, what the world is actually looking for at the moment. But I guess we are all in the same meaning that it is highly important to avoid further producing oil and using it. So I guess the bio-based way is the most advantaged one. But what to do with the biopolymers afterwards is still a secret. And the question behind it is stability. If we want that our biopolymer product has a fully biodegradation, it needs a certain, or it cannot be resistant to everything. Yeah? Because a polymer, no matter if it's conventional oil-made or from natural resources, will degrade from the first day of its life. Yeah? Some polymers more, some less. And the reason for that is that from the first second of its life, it has contact with radiation. Yeah? Usually UV radiation when it's outside, but also inside here we have UV radiation. Yeah? There are other sources of radiation like microwaves, etc. We have mechanical degradation. Yeah? When a polymer product is injected, molded, and it comes out of the machine, it falls on the bottom and has a pressure stress, so mechanical degradation. Yeah? So this can lead to cracks, to further crack propagation, to fracture and to a break and a failure at the end of the day. We have electrolytic degradation. These are so-called physical degradation processes. And these also happen in the ocean, for example. That means the waves and the stones inside the oceans, for example, they lead to mechanical degradation, and we have UV light there. So this leads to fragmentation. Yeah? And this is the reason why we have a lot of plastic in the inner country seas and also in the oceans, and they are fragmented, but they are not fully degraded. And this is currently a big problem. Yeah, and this is also the reason at the moment that more than 70% of all plastic emissions in Germany belong to microplastic. That means we cannot see them with our eyes. What we see are empty bottles, are packages in the environment, right, on the landfill side, in the water. But the sum of that is just this 25%. That means all the other 50 or 74% we cannot see, but it exists, and this is what can come to the earth, polluted. This can come to the sea, to the ocean, and it's a huge problem because we cannot really control it. Yeah, and you see the absolute number, approximately 500,000 tons per year. It's crazy number. Yeah? And maybe you have heard that one of the biggest sources for microplastic is car tires. Yeah? So that means acceleration braking has abrasive processes. And the people who calculated this number calculated, and this is true. I mean, think about how when you change your car tire, approximately every 2 or 3 years, and after these 2 or 3 years, all your 4 tires has lost approximately 6 kilograms of rubber. Yeah? And the rubber is a polymer, and it's cross-linked, and this cross-link leads to that it actually cannot be biodegraded because stable chemical bonds, and it's hardly possible to degrade it. Yeah? So think about this amount of microplastics, actually microelastics, because rubber is an elastomer. Yeah, next to the physical degradation, we have thermal degradation, especially when we recycle it. That means the material have to melt down again. Yeah, and so we have there are problems with thermal degradation, and we have oxidative stress and hydrolytic stress. But if we all of them have, then it can be an advantage, because then with the help of organisms and also with the right atmosphere, with oxygen as concentration, we can have biodegradation. So that means we destroy the bonds, especially on our heteroatoms, like here the oxygen. Yeah, we degrade it to its monomers again, and they are fully degraded to CO2, to water, and if you have some other minerals or things like that, also to biomass. But you see that all our biopolymers are also degraded to CO2. Yeah, and if we would not get the oil out of our Earth, the whole environment would actually be in equilibrium, yeah, because it's CO2 natural, what the Mother Earth is doing. Yeah, so they throw away their leaves. The leaves are degraded, producing CO2. We need CO2 for photosynthesization. Yeah, everything is fine. But as long as we bring more and more CO2 due to burning and things like that into the environment, we will have a problem. Okay? So that's why one way is really to keep the CO2. So that means we store the CO2 by taking, for example, coffee byproduct, and this is what I will show you a bit later. So, lesson learned, degradation does not mean biodegradation. Yeah? Degradation we have all the time, biodegradation not. When we think about biodegradation, that means the material can biodegrade. It needs a certain atmosphere, a certain condition. And you see here there are different ways of biodegradation. Yeah? Most of the packages of the polymers used today, when you have, for example, this compostable sign here on the very left, cannot degrade under normal atmospheric conditions. So that means when you throw it into the garbage in your garden, it will not degrade. You need a certain temperature. Here, that's why it's called industry compostable. We need more than 50 degrees Celsius, and even there we need a certain time. So at least 3 months, and then the polymer is fully degraded. And you see when the polymer can be degraded in home compost, you see the duration. Also independence of the thickness, of the amount, etc. We need at least 12 months, and even there a certain temperature. And this is also the way it works with water. Even there it will stay for a certain of time. Also here in the ocean, even if we have a polymer that can be degraded by microorganisms, etc. in the ocean, we need a certain time. And this is one of these biggest issue. It is not degraded for a few seconds. It will need a certain time. And during this time, a lot of things can happen. Nevertheless, if you can prove that your polymers work like this, you can get this certification by the TÜV Austria, for example. Okay, lesson learned again. Biodegradation is not the same like compostable. So think about it. Currently, most of the biodegradable polymers are not home compostable. They are industry compostable. This is just an overview of today's most used polymers, biopolymers. So you see, these are the biopolymers still based on oil. See the capacity. You also see that you get a feeling of the price, because for sure the price is always relevant. And one of the biggest issues why biopolymers are not used today so much, because they are for sure still more expensive than conventional polymers. And you see if they can be degraded in home compost or in the ocean. And the other way, you see amorphous semicrystalline. This is just important to know that when you have an amorphous polymer and then at room temperature it's stiff. So this is the biggest issue, that you need to know that. The glass transition temperature is on higher temperatures so that we can have a polymer product. And maybe you saw that there are some biopolymers who are in both fields, bio-TPE, biopolyamide, bio-PPT, and also bio-PET. What does that mean? And this is the reason why you should really take a close and concentrated look on the certification and products. That sometimes you have a bio-based label, but here the amount of the content of the bio-based concentration is given. And PET currently is one of these examples. You see the monomer of our PET, and it consists of the terephthalate acid and about the ethylene glycol component, and you see that just this ethylene glycol component is currently bio-based. I mean, a lot of engineers are working on the 70% to make it also from renewable resources, but currently just this 30% is bio-based. So all of us think, well, I have a bio-based product in my hand, but the real content is just 30%. Yeah? And this is the issue that we should consider. One of the way we go at university is to make this way of extraction. So that means we know that there are already natural polymers. We try to win them. Yeah? Here we put some potatoes, for example. We smash them. We take away the residues like the lignin and fibers. We also try to use these components for other applications. Yeah? Then we have this undried starch cake. Yeah? So then we get the dried starch. And now we need to create a slurry with the starch. So that means we need a plasticizer. Currently, we take natural glycerine. We are still looking for some alternatives. And when we do this slurry, you already got this thermoplastic material. Yeah? It's transparent, and now you can process it. You can bring it into a machine, making granulates out of that with this compounding process. Yeah, when you once got these granulates, you can do further processing like making films, making fibers, filaments, and finally produce, for example, a textile. This is one of the projects that we got at the moment. Yeah, and the other way that we try to focus is to go more to the PHA. So that means we try to take some bacteria as our helpers, and we now bring some control elements to the bioreactor. Yeah? We give them oxygen, phosphorus. We also give it some food waste, where we have a lot of carbon, and we also need to give it nitrogen. Yeah, and what happens when we withdraw the nitrogen? Then the bacteria are offended, and say, "Hey, come on, what are you doing? You take away something from me. So now I will keep something." Yeah, and what the bacteria keep is the carbon. Yeah, so now he captured the carbon, he stored it, and he built up macromolecules. These macromolecules we need for our polymers, right? So it stores it, and the polymers are created. Yeah, we still do not have to put any energy inside. All the bacteria do that for us. Yeah, great thing. Yeah, and at the end of the day, we have a formation of high molecular particles, which are now our polymer. And finally, at the end of the fermentation reaction, we extract the PHB by dissolving the cell walls of the bacteria. Yeah, and then we can try to increase the content and make polymer products of that. Okay, these were just some ways how to produce natural biopolymers. For final application, it's not enough to have just the biopolymers. Yeah? We need special properties, optical properties, surface properties, and things like that. So that means we need actually today a lot of stabilizers. These can be color pigments. This can be stabilizers against UV, flame resistance, anti-static agents, and things like that. Yeah? And even here, there's a lot of things that we actually don't want to have in our polymers. And even here, we try to go the way to take natural stabilizers. Yeah, we don't want to synthesize them by chemical processes. We just want to take what Mother Earth gives to us. And also there we can find color pigments, stabilizers against everything, and so on. And then we create a so-called master batch. And together with the raw biopolymer, we also want to produce, for example, films, injected molded things, profiles, tubes, and pipes. Okay, and one example I want to present to you is that we are currently working with Dr. Schwarz is taking some coffee byproducts and make bioplastics out of that. And what we have done is for the first time we took the parchment and the pulp. Yeah, here you can see the ingredients and the concentration of that. And for the pulp, for example, it is necessary to make a fat extraction because this can make some problems in the processing. Yeah. We have to fine grind it. Yeah, so we create some powder out of that, and we need to dry it because we also have a lot of humidity still in these components, and we need to take out of the humidity because you can guess in the compounding process we have higher temperatures. This would lead to evaporation and finally to some failures. Yeah, what you can see here is now the concentration of, for example, the pulp and also on the parchment, independence on the degradation temperature. So that means this temperature, the oxidation induction temperature, is the temperature when the degradation of the biopolymer master batch starts. Yeah, and what you can see is that with an increasing concentration of our coffee byproducts, this temperature is rising. Yeah? Here we reach a maximum. And you can see from 220 to 280 degrees Celsius, this means for us we can process this polymer at higher temperatures, because this is one of the biggest problems today with biopolymers, that when we need a certain temperature to bring the material to flow, etc., we can have thermal degradation. So that means we destroy the polymer, and the biopolymer starts to get brown due to this degradation process. And with the help of these natural stabilizers, we can increase the amount of increase the temperature, and nothing will happen to the biopolymer. Yeah? So it can act as a thermal stabilizer. Very nice. And we also said we can also use this as a flame retardant. Yeah? For example, for modifying some house building, construction parts, whatever, things like that. So it can be a natural flame retardant. Yeah? Otherwise, you can see it can happen that it burns and will be destroyed. So summarized, what we've learned is that today there is still a huge misunderstanding and incorrect wording when talking about biopolymers. So we need to be sure what is the resource, if it's oil-based or if it comes from natural resources. Yeah, because today, fully degradable polymers coming from oil belong to a biopolymer, even if there is no biopolymer fraction inside. So that means the bio content is zero, for sure, especially for petrochemical-based polymers, which are not biodegradable or not degradable. And we also saw that even if we have natural resources as components of our polymer, it does not mean that we have 100% biopolymer content. In the example of PET, we saw that just one part of the monomer is bio-based and the rest is still petrochemical-based. Yeah? And we saw that it can be possible to have both natural resources and a fully degradation, and that the concentration can be up to 100%. And today it's just a question of the will, a question of technical possibilities, and the question of, please give me your coffee byproducts to produce cool bioplastics. That's it. Thank you for listening and have a good day. Questions? No questions?
Any questions? Only €5? There is two reasons if there's no questions. Either it was absolutely unclear or it was absolutely clear. We leave it to the room.
Okay.
So no questions? Oliver, du wolltest was fragen. Okay, so thank you very much for being here, sharing with us. I think there is a lot of new options and opportunities, and especially I think it is great if we can stop a lot of, let's not call it lies, but bending of reality that some people are doing on just commercial reasons to try to convince people that things are biodegradable. I mean, they are. Everything is biodegradable. Depends on time. If you have some million years, yes, it will be biodegradable. You just don't have to be too much in a rush. If you look at it in a way of being reincarnated 900 lives, then it's easy. But if we are looking into it in a normal human way, we should look into it, then we should try to imitate more what nature is already kind of doing so successfully, and what nature had invented over millions of years cannot be so wrong as things that we might have learned over maybe some decades of years. It is human hybris to believe we can do everything easier, faster, and better in shorter time. Okay, so thank you very much. And I think we'll come to the next presentation then with Dr. Lachenmeier. I see he's already here.
Yes, behind.
Yes, right behind me. So, yeah, thank you. And we will just switch directly at that moment. Vorne ist auch Platz.